If you're going to take a look at some of the best pro wrestling video games of all time, you have to go none other than WWF No Mercy, WWF SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain. You even have the SVR series, and we can go on to the 2K series, and one of my favorites, W2K14. But if you're going to look at the numbers, the details, you got to look at what is the best-selling WWE game of all time. And spoiler alert, it's not any of those that I mentioned. It is actually WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2008. Huh? There's a twist here. Despite its incredible sales, many people found it slower and less enjoyable compared to 07 and 06 before. So how did WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 manage to sell nearly 8 million copies? Despite the sales numbers, this game severely underperformed. WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 was developed by Ukes in the SmackDown vs. Raw series, and it was published by THQ. It was released in November of 2007 for multiple platforms, including the PS2 and for the first time the PS3, the Xbox 360, the PSP, the Wii, and the DS. And the game quickly became a fan favorite from anybody that had any of those consoles. The team aimed to create a game that blended the wrestling simulation with engaging gameplay and continue that lineage that they had, as I mentioned, in the WWE SmackDown vs. Raw series, and they succeeded in many different ways. They focused on improving the gameplay mechanics, graphics, and overall presentation, and they wanted new features like fighting styles, and expanded the roster to include some of the mix of WWE and, for the first time, ECW and Legends in this game. One of the standout features of the game, whether you like it or not, was the fighting style system. This allowed players to choose 8 different fighting styles with their own unique abilities and moves. They were high flyer, brawler, submission artist, and more. They added depth and variety to the gameplay. You picked a hardcore style, you could hit a chair in your head, you could bleed, and then you'd be way cooler. Be awesome. I love doing that as Sandman. Each fighting style brought a unique flavor to the match, encouraging players to experiment and find out the style that suited them best. The addition of the struggle submission system further enhanced the realism, allowing players to control the intensity of their own submission holds. While this was true, it did slow down the gameplay massively. SVR 2008 also featured a wide variety of mini match types, including singles matches to multi-man bouts like Money in the Bank, Hell in the Cell, and Elimination Chamber. And of course, everybody loved playing these. Get your friends together. Makes for a lot of replayability for this game. While WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 introduced new features and expanded on the roster, many fans found it slower and less enjoyable compared to 07 and previous ones. The gameplay felt more sluggish, with slower animations and less responsive controls. In contrast, SVR 07 was praised for its fast-paced, fluid gameplay. The controls were more responsive and the animations felt smoother, making the matches more dynamic and enjoyable. The faster gameplay allowed for more intense and exciting matches. Many fans and reviewers noted that while SVR 08 had more features and a larger roster, 07 provided more satisfying gameplay at its core, and the slower pace of 08 made for less fun for some players. Just overall enjoyment was a lot less in SVR 2008. Despite the slower gameplay, the roster was one of its major selling points, including 50 superstars from WWE and ECW, which was touted as a big feature for that, giving you a diverse selection of characters and players to choose from, like John Cena, The Undertaker, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, Randy Orton, Legends, Bret Hart, and ECW stars like CM Punk, Tommy Dreamer, and Marcus Corvin added a bunch of variety in the roster. Customization was also a key feature that we loved in the SVR series. You could create your own wrestler, make your moveset, do your entrance, attires, all that. You could have endless creativity in the pro wrestling games that we loved. SVR 2008 offered several engaging modes that kept players hooked or tried to keep players hooked. And one of the most popular modes was 24/7 mode, which combined elements of career and general manager mode. Players could choose to focus on their superstar's career, managing their schedules, training, feuds, or you could do GM and you could run your own brand just like GM mode was. 24/7 provided a deep and immersive experience, allowing players to make crucial decisions that impacted their superstar's career or their brand success. The mode was packed with storylines, rivalries, and events that kept the players engaged for hours. The game also featured multiplayer options, both local and online, and players could compete against friends or other players around the world in different match types and make the game fun by playing online. Despite the slower gameplay, WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 achieved remarkable commercial success. According to VG charts and THQ's earning calls, the game sold an impressive 7.9 million copies across various platforms. The PS2 sold 2.6 million, the PS3 sold 1.33 million, the PSP sold 1.2 million, Xbox 360 came in at 1.7 million, the Wii sold 1 million, and the DS sold 120K. These numbers are insane for an annual sports title that wasn't acclaimed or anything at all. So why did SVR 2008 sold so many copies despite its slower gameplay? One of the main reasons for its success was its strong marketing campaign. THQ invested heavily in promoting this game with trailers, advertising, and collaboration with WWE programming, and just the massive presence across multiple platforms helped it reach a wider audience. I mean, you had the PS2, the PS3, the PSP, the Xbox 360, the Wii, and the DS. All of that was massive for them. Yes, we had the next-gen console of the PS3 and the Xbox 360, but even selling 2.6 million on the PS2 is a huge number, and they couldn't give up that game market, so they still were releasing it for the older console. Additionally, the lack of strong competition from other wrestling games at the time, SVR 08 had that advantage. Many wrestling fans turned to SVR 2008 as their go-to game for pro wrestling, boosting the sales even further. If you were looking to play a pro wrestling game, this was the only option for the Nintendo Wii. SVR 2008 was all that we had, so that was the game that you were going to buy. Plus, it had its distinct advantages of having motion control, which the other versions didn't have, so a lot of people bought multiple copies of this game. Try out the motion controls and then go back to the PS3 or the Xbox 360 to play the real version of the game. The legacy of WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 will be a mixed one forever. While it did set sales records and introduced innovative features, it's often remembered as just not that great of a game, and it fell short of its predecessor's high standards. Despite the slower gameplay, SVR will still remain a significant title in the WWE SVR franchise, setting the stage for future improvements. Many features introduced in SVR 08, such as fighting styles and the inclusion of ECW superstars, influenced later WWE games. However, the lessons learned from the slower gameplay and less engaging modes help shape improvements in future titles. Interestingly, WWE SVR 2009, the follow-up, did not achieve the same level of commercial success despite being released with much anticipation. Several factors contributed to its lower sales. Critics and fans with mixed opinions on 08 made them not want to buy 2009. Reason being was that slower gameplay that I talked. Also in SVR 2009, they introduced new features like Road to WrestleMania and improved tag team mechanics. It also faced criticism for not innovating enough and removing the general manager mode from the game entirely. IGN praised the game's new Road to WrestleMania mode, but noted that the game felt somewhat stale and did not bring enough new content. Game Master UK acknowledged that it was an improvement over the previous year, but still found it very familiar. Official Xbox magazine highlighted the fun factor and the crisp controls, but also agreed it wasn't very perfect. The removal of GM mode was particularly disappointing for many fans. The mode was a fan favorite in many games, allowing players to draft superstars, manage contracts, and compete for ratings. Its absence in 2009 left a void that many fans felt was adequate and not filled by the new features. Additionally, the wrestling game market was becoming saturated with many different titles at the time, plus everybody vied for the next No Mercy or the next Here Comes the Pain, and we weren't getting that in 2009. There was stiff competition from other game franchises such as Call of Duty, making buyers go for those games away from the WWE titles. While SVR 2009 didn't perform poorly, it didn't reach the same sales height as SVR 2008. The game's commercial performance highlighted the challenges of sustaining annual sports titles and the importance of balancing innovation with fans' expectations. WWE SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 is so unique. It should be a case study in the WWE Games franchises. Yes, it does hold the highest selling WWE game of all time, thanks to its impressive roster, innovative features, and strong marketing. However, its slower gameplay and less enjoyable experience compared to the previous titles left fans feeling very disappointed. While SVR 2008 may not be fondly remembered as its predecessors, it's still an important part of the SVR series. The commercial success demonstrates the power of strong branding, wide audience availability, and the marketing campaign that went with it. On top of that, being available for every console, including last gen and current gen, and the Nintendo Wii for the very first time, but this game just didn't quite hit the mark for everyone. If you haven't played SVR 2008, it's something worth checking out for its unique place in the wrestling game history. As far as 09, while it didn't sell as well, it still offers an enjoyable experience with its own set of innovations and improvements. Again, this is something that you need to look at as far as the whole of the SmackDown vs. Raw series. It's something that will keep you going for many, many years if you go and play these games back. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about the SVR series 08 in particular. And as always, I'm TonyPizzaGuy. We'll see you in another video.